Greetings, Nine Ether Nation, and welcome to Nine Ether Truth. I'm your host, Trinity Goddess. The title of this video is Yes, Black Woman is God. Here's why, part 2. A few things I wanted to get out of the way. My apologies for those who were expecting a video from me last week. I had was to just throw up a general text video explaining that I had technical difficulties and was unable to provide a video last week. However, the time has given me a chance to put a few more enhancements and add on to the subject. Yes, Black Woman is God, and here is why. I just want to make a few announcements before I begin. The Yeti that is subscribed to my channel, you know who you are. Unsubscribe yourself, you're a parasite. I misspoke and stated that I unsubscribed the parasite. Well, apparently YouTube does not have a functionality where you can unsubscribe undesirables. I really wish they did. However, he says still subscribed. I ended up blocking him so he's not able to comment on my videos. However, if he listens and watches, I hope he learns how much of a lower life form his kind really is. Moving forward, as usual, I know that there are exceptions to every rule, and the information that I'm putting out here is just for teaching purposes. That being stated, I'm going to add a few things to the Black Woman is God subject. Firstly, I just want to say I know that we're not black, obviously. I just put that in the title so that we remain on the same page. We are nine ether, high vibration, spiritual, organic, natural beings, and we're the only one exclusively on earth who are human, melanin dominant. So that being stated, I want to get started by saying I know that there are some 9 ether Y chromosome melanated out there who regurgitate the soundbite Black Woman is God, and they do this solely for the purpose of getting in women's panties. Yes, that's correct. Okay? And have dick panderers stroke their ego. Yes, God, you have great info, great knowledge, and you're so on point. You know what? High vibration X chromosome melanateds are wise to this game that you play. Stop it, okay? If you're low intelligence, gather your real information and be genuine about the information you put out there. And don't put information out there just to get into women's panties. Yes, that's right. I'm calling you male whores out, okay? Stop that low vibration behavior. It's disgusting. It's despicable. All right? Onward and forward. So 2 things I wanted to add to this topic. Number 1, I want to talk about the family fight that occurred. And number 2, I want to examine if the modern X chromosome melanated would be able to handle parthenogenesis if it were to happen to her right now. So those are 2 things I'm going to elaborate on. So let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is the family fight. Now, this information came to me through a download, through various resources that I gathered my information from. So I'm just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. There's no one specific place I got this information from. I'm just using logic and common sense to piece the story together. So here goes. While the gods back in ancient time, I should say demigods by now because they are in the physical and they have partial superpowers and not. One of the superpowers that they did initially have when they came through the Great Rift or the Dark Rift, which is the crack in the dome, in the firmament, is the ability to self-procreate. They could self-conceive. And so they kept falling lower and lower into the physical, and over time, unfortunately, they lost the ability to self-conceive. However, while they were able to do that, they had multiple births. So because they needed to populate the earth in a short period of time, they had to have multiple births in order to populate the land. And so they begat, as I mentioned in the first part to this series, they begat female X chromosome babies. And those females, when they became of age, they also begat X chromosome babies, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, they kept falling. So those babies mutated, and All of a sudden, now from their womb sprang the Y chromosome, which is the lower half of the god of the feminine, as I mentioned in part one. Now, the purpose of the Y chromosome is he's supposed to be the protector, the defender, and he's supposed to be the helper mate to the god as she self procreated and ran the land through the matriarchal system and set up everything that was in place and doled out orders to who she had to dole out the orders to and ran everything very harmoniously. However, over time, the Y chromosome melanated saw she had superpowers, especially the superpower to self procreate, and he became jealous. Now, let me tell you something about jealousy and envy. These are two of my biggest pet peeves. I don't have a jealous bone in my body. However, when I see people demonstrate jealousy and envy, it really gets to me because why would you even be jealous of anyone or even be focusing on anyone else external? Because it's higher vibration to focus on self, to heal thyself, to know thyself. So the fact that the Y chromosome melanated are looking at the gods and rather than empowering themselves and being proud of her, is actually being jealous and envious of her ability to self procreate is testament that they are very much low vibration and tied to the physical for the most part. And that jealousy and envy is stuck to their psyche and deeply embedded in their DNA makeup. And I'm not saying that X chromosome melanated can't be jealous and envious. However, it is the Y chromosome that is jealous and envious of the X chromosome God more so because she has a lot of things extra that he lacks. She has a womb, she has breasts that has milk ducts that is able to sustain a life. She's able to carry a life in her womb for 9 months. When that being comes out of her spiritual porthole, she is able to breastfeed and sustain that life. And upon viewing this, a lot of men just get jealous and they don't say it. I've had a few brothers express to me that they feel helpless during that time when she is pregnant or has just given birth. And it's only natural because she's doing something so important for that life that he cannot. This is why I know that the Y chromosome melanated cannot be God. Because God is not lacking in anything. And when they say God is a jealous God, like they do in that fucking Bible, that is just patriarchal bullshit. No God is supposed to be jealous or envious because jealousy is a low vibration state of being. So this is how I know that the most of the stuff in the Bible is just pure fuck shit. Pure patriarchal man is the best and hate on woman faggotry bullshit. So getting back to the gods now, and as she is self-procreating, she's slowly starting to lose her superpowers. However, the Y chromosome, and here's where the family fight comes into play, turned around and said to God, I can create life too. Look what I can do. And he used physical science. He threw a little bit of genes in his little scientific experiment, some rats, some pigs, some jackals, some primate, and off he went to the Caucasus Mountain and he created the Yeti, the Tamahu, against the god's instructions. In fact, before he went to the Caucasus Mountains, the god said, listen, don't do this because if you do the scientific experiment, these creatures that you create will wreak havoc on the world. They will be savage and barbaric. You won't be able to contain them. So the Y chromosomes left the Caucasus Mountain, came back to Kemet, and what happened? Of course, everything the god said would happen, did happen. The beasts started to sex up the place and multiply. They flung feces, they were full of fur, and they were savage and barbaric. So the gods ordered the Y chromosome melanated back to the Caucasus Mountains, and she said, go and take care of that outbreak that you created, that problem. So the Y chromosomes went back to the Caucasus Mountains, killed as many as the adults as he could, and worked with the little children, built a plank that was in the shape of a T. That's where they get the so-called Christian cross from. Yes, that's not where fictitious faggot Jesus was crucified from. It was actually an instrument that our scientists had to use on these savage Yeti, the Sasquatch, the caveman, little babies to straighten up their back and to train them to walk upright. So he shaved down the fur, he worked with the genes a little bit, and over time he was somewhat successful. And now, in modern time, you are seeing the refined caveman, the refined Neanderthal, called the Caucasoid Mongoloid and Asiatic Mongoloid. However, these beings, these non-melanated, still have the barbaric and savage behavior still in their DNA. All right, I digress. So back to the story now. And it is at this point that the savage Neanderthal beast, he's still covered with fur, is traveling far and wide and eventually comes into Kemet. When I say fur, I mean that thing on their head that they incorrectly call hair. But now they look a little civilized and they're coming into Kemet and they are raping and sexing up the place, and a lot of babies are being born. They're destroying our knowledge. They're stealing our knowledge. They're plagiarizing over our knowledge, and chaos is ensuing. And as I mentioned, this is at the point where the sisters are losing their ability to self-procreate and now needs a phallus that has a semen that needs to fertilize her egg. And at this point, she's also having her menstrual cycle because she's under a lot of stress.
This is a skull of a modern human, and this is from a Neanderthal. Look closely and you can see that this one has a slightly longer brain case. Most scientists believe that these are two separate species, and there wasn't much interaction between the two, and that all non-Africans living today are part Neanderthal. The researchers extracted DNA from Neanderthal fossils and compared it with that taken from people living today. They found that the DNA of Europeans and Asians is Neanderthal.
It's a very exciting discovery because it gives us really the first strong evidence that there was interbreeding with people like the Neanderthals. And it means that modern humans in different parts of the world may have slightly different mixes.
And the Neanderthal in me has always said Neanderthal, I stand quite corrected.
There are many jokes about people behaving like Neanderthals, but it seems the joke could be on us. Research has found that many human beings actually have Neanderthal DNA, proving there's an evolutionary link.
The Neanderthal, that beastly evolutionary outcast, thought to be extinct for 30,000 years. But scientists believe they've picked up the trail of that hairy historic reject in the most surprising of places.
In us, many of us anyway, there is new evidence that humans inherited up to 4% of our DNA from Neanderthals.
The study in the journal Science is based on painstaking research into 3 Neanderthal bone fragments. Scientists reconstructed the Neanderthal genetic code and compared it to modern humans from across the globe and found there was up to a 4% match with humans everywhere but from Africa. Which means, despite the old assumption that Neanderthals disappeared from the evolutionary chart,
Neanderthals aren't quite extinct. They all live on a little bit in many of us.
The research is part of a major project mapping the Neanderthal's genome and hopefully providing firm answers to a number of evolutionary questions.
If you've ever accused someone of being a Neanderthal, then tonight you've been proved right. But it takes one to know one, because scientists have just released studies that show we are all partly Neanderthal. Stephanie West has this report.
It's a debate that's engaged scientists for 100 years or more. What's our link with Neanderthal man and woman? And moreover, did we ever mate? For the last 4 years, a team of 50 international scientists in Germany have been extracting DNA from Neanderthal bones, looking to resurrect their genetic code. As to what these scientists say, it's a potential goal to help establish what makes us unique. In fact, in modern times, Neanderthal has become a handy word for brutish, unevolved behaviour, as in this 1950s cult classic. But at the Natural History Museum, they hope this discovery will lead to a little more understanding towards our past partners.
What we don't know yet is what these genes might be doing. So the genes that came from Neanderthals, we don't yet know what their significance might be. They were distinct from us, but they were actually quite advanced humans. They could walk upright as well as we can. Their brains were as large as ours. They were pretty good at what they did in terms of stone tool making. They buried their dead, so they had some very human features. And what this research also shows is that there are at least 70 genes that have been picked up that seem to be unique to the modern human line.
Before disappearing from the face of the Earth 28,000 years ago, Neanderthals shared a common offspring with Cro-Magnon man, an early Homo sapien. They hunted the same territories and lived through the same dangers in a cohabitation that lasted for 10,000 years. Neanderthal appeared 400,000 years ago in a region stretching from the Middle East to Europe. 300,000 years later, Homo sapien crossed paths.
How is this discovery significant?
What's important to understand is that beyond the study of the Neanderthals themselves, this discovery is important to understand the very nature of modern humans. We can really understand what makes modern humans really different from the other living beings.
Is it possible to say, though, what is Neanderthal about us? How has Neanderthal DNA sort of impacted modern humans?
Well, first of all, the study showed that this integration of genetic material is visible only in non-Africans, in Asians and Europeans, and this is related to the way this crossing between the two species occurred.
The thing that I wanted to point out is the fact that the Y chromosome got very jealous and envious of the fact that the X chromosome melanated God could self-procreate. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. There's nothing new under the sun. You know, I look at the interactions between Y chromosome melanated and X chromosome melanated, and I must say, for the most part, it is deplorable. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule, and I am not by any means generalizing. However, if a X and Y chromosome melanated get into an argument and things get heated and tempers flare, Y chromosome melanated will be trying to tear down that sister, and he will try to degrade and belittle her in every way, shape, and form. And where does that come from? Because this is the woman he sticks his phallus in. He's supposed to love her, protect her, defend her. It comes from the source of being envious and jealous of her in the first place. And I see this in a lot of sister bashing brothers, especially online, and sometimes when I hear an argument in passing, or you know, there's a dispute, even if it's just a brother and sister that's not in a relationship, just a acquaintance or what have you, the words get so vicious and you kind of wonder, where is this coming from? And of course, everything has a source, everything has a cause and effect. So yes, this is the state of the affairs that we have. Obviously, I will do other shows talking about, you know, the dysfunction between the X and Y chromosome melanated. But for the most part, when we're talking in the context of Black woman is God, there was jealousy and animosity that started to stir in the Y chromosome melanated, because he was jealous of the God's ability to house a baby in her womb, and at the time, back in ancient days, self-procreate. And so this is sort of coming out in very, very tiny ways when the Y chromosome and X melanated are interacting, and I see that the brother is bashing the sister, and I backtrack because I always like to go back to the source of it all. And she has a lot of things biologically that he lacks. And except for physically lifting, the X chromosome melanated, she is God. She is a superior being intellectually, spiritually, and biologically. So Y chromosome melanated, don't compete with that. You're competing with God, and you need to honor and respect the sister, regardless of how she dresses, what she wears, what she says, what she does, because in her mitochondrial DNA sits that God particle. And as I said in part 1, it doesn't matter what she says, how she dresses, how she behaves, she still holds that God particle in her DNA. So all you fuckboys that try to say, oh, she's behaving badly, is this your God? Shut the fuck up with that bullshit. I'm not even trying to hear that noise, because that is completely irrelevant. She is still God, as I love to say. So I just wanted to touch on that family fight. I also wanted to mention something. If you ever get a chance, I don't have time to go into details. I'll put some links in the description. But if you ever get a chance, research the Bartholin gland. That's right, Bartholin, and then gland. So this is a very interesting win for parthenogenesis. It's a gland found deep within the vagina that once secreted a semen type substance or secretes this liquid. You can read up on it. I'm doing my research about it. However, it builds a very strong case that we melanated X chromosomes are physically capable of producing our own semen. And this is very interesting. I'll leave a few articles, not just one source. And of course, you don't only have to take my source. You can venture off on your own and find your own sources. But yeah, parthenogenesis, the black woman is God. She once could self-procreate. Whether you want to accept it or not, those are the facts. Okay, onward and forward. I also wanted to talk about the X chromosome melanated modern woman today, and whether she would be able to handle her just waking up one day and being able to self-procreate. Obviously, I'm a logical thinker, and the answer that I wisely came up with and concluded is absolutely not, okay? For a few reasons. We were different when we were demigods. Everything was clean and pristine. Our body was able to self-procreate and have 5, 10, 15 babies at a time. There was a need for it because we needed to populate the earth and our reproductive system was in hyperdrive. So the environment was right and our body, mind, spirit was right to self-procreate. Move forward to modern times, and of course the gods have fallen so far that she's lost her superpower. She's not able to self-procreate anymore. So not only has she lost her superpower, her mentality, her behavior is completely different in this very oppressive Caucasian supremacy society. So her behavior, her mentality is not conducive to be able to self-procreate. Also, she has a need right now in modern times for a male companion. Well, when you are a god and you are able to self-procreate and you're complete and you have all your superpower, there is no need for the Y chromosome melanated because, as I stated in part 1, the Y chromosome melanated is not in heaven, nor is it in Shambhala. The Y chromosome melanated was strictly made here in the physical realm, and it is my speculation that here is where they will stay. In order for them to ascend, they would have to be a god. Only God belongs in the heaven realm. I also think that some gods will also go into the North Pole. We live on a very flat, motionless plane. It's an infinite plane covered over by a firmament. Do your research into flat Earth. So in the center, that would be Shambhala. And there is paradise down there. Don't let them tell you or lie to you and tell you that hell is below and it's fiery. No, it's just another dimension. There are several dimensions. So as for the Y chromosome melanated, they'll either go extinct because less baby boys are being born and more baby girls are being born. And if you follow that trend, it could only lead to the extinction for the Y chromosome, especially if the X chromosome melanated goes back into parthenogenesis. After she goes back into parthenogenesis, then she is ready to ascend back into the heaven realm where she came from. That's where she belongs because she is God. However, the Y chromosome melanated, which is her lower half, the one that's physically tied to here, the physical realm, because he came out of her womb here in the physical realm. He did not come out of her womb in the heaven realm. So here is where he will stay. So right now, as it stands, we do need our helper mate by our side. He is the yin to our yang. Two halves make a whole. He is to be there to honor us, to support us, to uplift us, to protect us, to defend us. Unfortunately, the majority of our Y chromosome melanated are not doing this. In fact, they're doing the opposite. They are looking at us only as a piece of meat, someone to just stick it, hit it, and quit it. And they will put on a pseudo-conscious, phony conscious act in order to get into our panties. A lot of brothers or men of all races basically just come into the black community and molest children and rape women and off they go. And this is the mentality of a great majority of brothers. Sex is at the forefront. That is their main motivator. A lot of jerking off, a lot of watching porn. They are very physical. Their phallus jumps and twitches and erects at every big ass that they see. And this is a very low vibration state of being, because our people once used sex as sex magic to raise our vibration. Now, our X chromosome and Y chromosome are using sex as a recreational sports, and anything overused will always diminish or weaken in power or become a low vibration thing to do. So the sex on the brain thing, Y chromosome, you need to stop it. Get rid of it. Do some meditation, take cold showers. I don't care. When you see a female, get to know her character, get to know what's in her brain, get to know her long and short-term goals. Work with her to start a business. If you see a sister, help her in some way, shape, or form, whether she is someone that you are attracted to or not. This is your divine role. You have forgotten who you are. You are the helper made to the God. How much of a help are you? How much help did you provide for her today? How much help did you provide for her this week, this month? And I'm not talking about financial help or sticking your dick and making her feel good. I'm talking about things that you can do for her outside of the bedroom. Things like group economics, getting brothers together and forming a community watch and protecting her and the children in the community. How many of you, Y chromosome melanated, can say you do that? That's a problem. So you need to raise your vibration and stop watching porn and jerking off to porn. And stop seeing every sister as someone who you could potentially fuck, whether you have a woman or not. Stop going online and spewing all the pseudo-conscious bullshit just so you can get your ego stroked and that you can get some cyber booty on the side or somebody to fuck from your social media account. Stop that behavior. Okay? And I'm not talking about all, I'm talking about some. If the shoe don't fit, don't wear it. So I digress. Getting back to the sisters, she also has a strong sexual urge herself, and she's yearning for a phallus because it's part of her nature in order for her to duplicate herself, in order for her to procreate. Well, her sexual nature would have to be stripped away for her to have parthenogenesis occur. And as it stands right now, sisters have very healthy sexual nature, and that's not going away, I don't predict, anytime soon. So that's another reason why she cannot handle self-conceiving or having babies just randomly asexually. I need to add though, there is an epidemic of fatherless households within the Black community. So I think nature or circumstance is just making the woman, the X chromosome woman, be alone with a bunch of children, because at some point her melanin is just going to kick in. And I don't think it will happen in Babylon, or as they say in the so-called developed countries. I think that sisters in remote areas of the Caribbean and the continent are more likely to have their God particle activate and them being able to have babies asexually than anyone in Babylon, because in the Matrix, as it stands, we're being bombarded with GMO food, with chemicals, brainwashing, oppression, racism. There's so many things designed to keep us from coming into our God selves. Everything that bombards the X chromosome melanated is to keep her womb from developing the parthenogenesis process. So it most likely will happen to some other sister way out there that's living a healthy, clean, stress-free life in the bushes somewhere, eating organically. And in part one, I highlighted the sister who has 38 children in Uganda. So if you haven't seen part one, take a look at that. It's very interesting. They say the father took off. That's not what I conclude. They hide a lot of things from us, and they lie to us about a lot of things so that we don't know who we are. So getting back to the sisters being able to self-procreate in this modern time, hell motherfucking no. Okay? I know I would not like to wake up one day and know that I'm pregnant and no man laid the seed there, and all of a sudden doctor tells me I'm having 10 babies. What would I do? So yeah, it would be a very uncomfortable, disharmonious state to be in, and Ma'at doesn't work that way. Everything in due time, we don't get more than we can handle, no matter how good or bad things get. So that's my, I guess, common sense, logical answer to whether parthenogenesis would fly within so-called developed world with X chromosome melanated. So the answer is absolutely not. Okay, so that's the little add-on, the enhancement I wanted to provide on the topic. Yes, Black woman is God. Here's why. Hopefully I won't have to do a part 3. I don't think so. I think part 2 is enough. I think I've said most of what needs to be stated. I'm going into half hour now, so I'm going to wrap up. If you liked or disliked anything or want to elaborate on anything that I've mentioned in this video or any of my videos, please feel free to comment in the comment box below. Don't forget, if you're 9 ether melanated, to subscribe to my channel, and you can always like and share what you hear. I'm not sure what next week's topic will be. However, to my beloved high vibration, genuine, humble 9 ether melanated nation, I say to you, oneness.